Dear friends, Legal Breeze welcomes you for yet another discussion on a very recent topic which is highly sensational in nature. I'm sure by this time you would have guessed it. What is the topic could have been? It is none other than the constitutional validity or constitutionality of the 2021 guidelines on digital media ethics. Though the title is very long, just for your understanding, I keep it like that. Digital media guidelines. It talks about not only digital media, it talks about the liability of social media intermediaries. It also regulates the OTT, on the top regulations. So there are three contents. Why we have to talk about it? What is its necessity? These are the few questions you may ask it. But before I deal those issues, I believe it's my bounden duty to explain you the background under which these regulations have been done. In fact, these regulation addresses three different issues. The concern is largely about part 3 rather than part 1 and 2. These 2021 guidelines comprises of three parts: part 1, part 2, part 3. Part 1 and part 2 will be administered by the Ministry of Electronics and Communications or Ministry of IT and Information and Electronics and Communication. The last part will be administered by the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. How one regulation will be administered by different ministries and different governmental bodies, but you claim that this rule making power has been exercised under one single act, that is the Information Technology Act. Information Technology Act has nothing to do with the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. This itself is a very biggest constitutional flaw that the government has committed. Government has ignored. And whether the Parent Act, if at all you claim that section 87 the government is claiming, or 89, whatever it is, they also claiming some other provisions under the Information Technology Act. Under that, they said that they are making this rule making power, exercising of the rule making power conferred under the IT Act, that the government is doing all these things. That is also not justifiable. We need to explain what is the objective of the Information Technology Act, what is the background in which the Information Technology Act has been enacted, whether the Information Technology Act reasonably covers all these things, whether you have the foresight for 20 years or 30 years. Please remember, the Constitution of India per se has undergone more than 100 plus amendments within these 70 plus years. So what about your Information Technology Act? A field which is rapidly changing, each and every minute there is a change. There is new aspect is added, but our act is highly static. And you do everything in the backdoor method called rule making exercise without even having mandate under the Information Technology Act. If you go through the objectives of the Information Technology Act, first of all, what is its background? You do not have any other act, corresponding act, prior to the commencement or passage of this IT Act 2000. So what is a model law? We always look for a model. After all, our constitution itself has been done based on certain model, like the Government of India Act 1935. That is, though it's not an exclusive, but it is one of the essential model. And you incorporated certain other provisions which is already existing in some other domain. The same way, our Information Technology Act has been enacted based on a law called UNCITRAL Model Law on International Commercial Transaction. international electronic commercial transaction, e-commerce, UNCITRAL model on e-commerce, international e-commerce. So what is this? That's only a model law. We should have adopted depending upon our needs. Primarily, this is to regulate the e-commerce activities. Slowly we have extended to quote unquote e-governance. So whatever you do in the normal things, if it is done in the digital domain, it is added prefixed a word called e. Paper means they will call it e-paper. Commerce they will call it e-commerce. Check they will call it as e-check, like that. Contract will be termed as e-contract. Fortunately, they don't call the crimes pertaining to the aforestated field as e-crimes, but they call it cyber crimes. So, any criminal activities relating to the commercial transaction, financial transactions could have been covered under under the aforestated act. There is no doubt about it. For that, yes, the preamble of the IT Act permits you, because the objects of the IT Act has been stated in the preamble very clearly. But later on, certain crimes against women, children have also been covered under this Act. But there is an amendment in the Parent Act by 2009. That also we should understand. I'm sorry about it. In 2009, we brought amendment in the Parent Act. Accordingly, certain things have been added, like cyber security, then crimes against women, children, pornography, sexually explicit material, hacking, stalking, voyeurism. All these things have been covered under the Information Technology Act with the consent of the Parliament. Parliament has given consent, Parliament has given mandate. So you got a statutory mandate. Based on that, we had the Information Cyber Security Policy 2013. Many more things. You had something called Sensitive Personal Data Rules 2011. Yes, all these things have received mandate with the amendment in the Act itself. Say example, there is a provision which relating to the data transaction under section 43A. So therefore, whatever you do under the rules, it is permissible. The delegated legislation is intra-virus and not ultra-virus. But is it the same about these 2021 guidelines? Absolutely no. You do not have mandate at all. Part 3 has been done as an outcome of some other committee. Part 1, Part 2 has been done as an outcome of some other committee. There is no relationship between these two committees. Committees have been constituted at different point of times on different subject matter. Somehow you have taken a decision, amalgamating all these things, and you say you are exercising this rule-making power under the Information Technology Act. Show me the provision, which provision authorizes you to do so, particularly to regulate the freedom of expression, a constitutional right. How a constitutional right, particularly a fundamental right, can be regulated through a rule solely without the consent of the Parliament? Even if the Parliament breaches the guarantees conferred by way of Part 3, it can be struck down. That is the power, a constitutional right, a constitutional promise which has been granted by our constitutional framers under Article 13. So you may ask me, sir, whether these rules cannot be quashed. Yes, it can be quashed. But what my contention is that when the Parliament itself has such a greater restriction, its authority is highly limited, highly fettered, controlled, regulated in relation to the constitutional rights, particularly fundamental rights. This government makes an attempt to curtail the fundamental rights just simply through rule making power, just through notification. Again, there is another flaw. You are delegated legislation cannot further delegate it. Say example, they say in part 1 and part 2, they say that there is a social media, significant social intermediary and ordinary social media intermediary. How will you fix? They say the threshold will be fixed. Where are you going to fix it? We will do it later on through some other notifications. Who has empowered you to do so? By rule making power, how can you delegate? You yourself is a delegate. A delegate cannot further delegate it. This is also one of the gravest violation of the basic principles or basic tenets of administrative law and constitutional law. It's yet another flaw or fraud. If I'm used to, if I can use the word attested by the Honorable Supreme Court of India in the popular case called DC Wadhwa versus State of Bihar, the Supreme Court has went on to say that when you are doing certain important legislative function solely through executive function, it's a fraud upon the constitution. Exactly, this is a constitutional fraud. The government knows that it doesn't have the authority. It's not only this government, it is very unfortunate. Whenever the government doesn't have majority in both the houses, instead of convincing the parliament, they keep the parliament in dark and they brutally violate or bypass both the houses of the parliament. And they simply do in the name of rule making power. The previous UPA government has made such a constitutional blunder in the name of Aadhaar. Almost for 1 decade, there is no law regulating the Aadhaar, but somehow they have done it without the sanction of the parliament. Now, this government wanted to do away the fundamental rights in the name of OTT regulations. You are regulating the news content. You are regulating the what they call it online creative content. Who has empowered you? Under what authority you are doing it? Not through primarily, if it is done through legislation itself is challengeable. And legislation offers lot of freedom to the citizens. Citizens can express its views. And what is the shelter they take place? They take the shelter under the Re Prajwala case. Re Prajwala case certainly talks about child pornography, sexually exploitable material, explicit material. Yes, certainly Supreme Court has given a direction to regulate all these things. For that you have the mandate under the IT Act. We agree with you. But can you use the same cover to regulate the copyrighted content, the cinematography content, all other creative expressions? And the secretary, who is he? He is a bureaucrat. He is a subordinate functioning under the executive. How can you confer judicial functions under his hands? He doesn't know anything about judicial aptitude. He doesn't know anything about the principles of natural justice. He is not a judicial member. He is not equipped with legal trapping, legal characteristics or legal qualities. How can a judicial function can be exercised primarily by an executive person? This is violation of Article 50. This is also violation of the basic structure of the Constitution. So we believe good sense will prevail over. Thanks to the Kerala High Court, they have taken up the matter. And thanks to LiveLaw, one of an online portal which disseminates legal news to the citizens of this country. So unless we are vigilant, the citizens are vigilant, unless the media is vigilant, nobody can protect your freedom. That's what the law says: vigilantibus, dormantibus, non-derogatory-bus. So if you are sleeping upon your rights, nobody can save you. People have to awaken. People should be vigilant. People should not sleep upon their own rights, and naturally government, not only the government, everybody will try to take advantage of it. So unless you have a well-informed citizens, this is not feasible. Often Justice Chandrachud used to say, the citizen is the highest constitutional office. Unless you have strengthened your citizenship in the sense, unless you are well informed, unless you are vigilant, unless the citizens are active, nobody can save this country. So we hope citizens will awake. Please knock the doors of the appropriate courts of justice and please raise your voice against these autocratic laws. In the name of regulating OTT, you cannot shut the voice of the citizens, a fundamental right guaranteed by our constitution. On the other hand, you cannot, copyrighted industries is $1 billion industry, and you want to promote ease of doing business. Unless you give right space to the copyrighted goods and services and the media industries, entertainment industries, who will come forward to invest in this country? So, that is also going against your own policies, the governmental policy. See, we hope good sense will prevail over sooner rather than later. The awakened citizenship is the need of the hour. The citizens will rise to the occasion and fulfill your fundamental duties. Jai Hind. God bless you.